got a brand new book out, and what's the title of it?
It's called High Shoals, Two Tales of a City. It's about William Church Whitner and the Electric City, whose statue is in front of the courthouse, the only Andersonian with a statue. And it's somebody that we need to know more about. I had to. It was important to me to know more about him. A very significant historic figure. That's the 1895 history. Then the other tale, I skip 100 years to 1795. In 1795, this property down here, which is known as High Shoals, was called Pickens Shoals. And there was a mill here. It was called the Widow Pickens Mill. And I have a 1794 deed to a Captain John Pickens. Anson, Oconee, and Pickens counties were never a part of colonial South Carolina. This was Cherokee country. Cherokees, Choctaws, and Creeks. When the Revolution came, I start with General Andrew Pickens, who was the general of the American militia. He and his group had the British, the Loyalists, or Tories they called them, in 96, they had them under siege. The British had induced the Indians to fight on their side. Well, here you had, on the one hand, Whigs, they called themselves, or Patriots, who were the Americans fighting. Then you had the Tories, or Loyalists, who were the British sympathizers. And then you had the Indians. Well, the Indians had two choices. They could join either side, but they were going to lose either way they went. The Indians fought Indian style, and so they burned homes. They destroyed crops. They destroyed people, the Long King Massacre being one of them. As a result of that, Andrew Pickens, who was sympathetic toward them, but he was also very loyal to his obligations and his duties as an American, and he led punitive expeditions against them. In 1777, they had to cede all of their territory to the United States. And that's when this became the new frontier for South Carolina. And in this book, I have some little maps that shows how it looked. 1769's little map shows Cherokee country. That's Anson, Oconee, and Pickens. 1785, it became 96th district, and this little strip up there was Indian country. In 1800, it became Pendleton district, and a smaller little tract up there for Indian country. Let's go back to Whitner. 1895, he's standing in front of the Anderson courthouse, got a watch in his hand, looking up at the street light. Now he's not waiting for the bus, he's not hailing a taxi cab. He's waiting for them to throw the switch to turn on the street lights downtown as a part of his experiment in the transportability of electricity. Anderson, as a result of his experiments, became the Electric City, and this was the route right there. That was the first step in that direction. 6.2 miles from High Shoals, where we are, to that point is the distance that the transported that electricity that was generated by a little generator on the floor of the grain mill was here. The background on that is you had Thomas Edison, who was so renowned for his experiments with all types of things, including electricity. And he was an advocate of direct power. When you use Thomas Edison's power, which they did up in that New England area, when you use his power, that direct power, you had to build your plant within a mile of the source. Because to go beyond that, you had to have a series of expensive relay stations to reboost and transport that direct power. During that time, Westinghouse and Tesla were advocates of alternating current. And the advantages that they offered and said that that alternating current had over direct current was that it could be transferred over a distance. Whitner was the city engineer for Anderson, in charge of water, power, and that was his job. And in this book, I write about him, but I put his letters in there. He said more about himself in his letters than I could say. And he was a very prolific letter writer. He had all of his thoughts and the details of his history, all of that. And the letters are in there. It's significant history. It's something everybody in this area should know. Well, he went up to New England and they built him a generator. He brought it down here. And so when they threw that switch, the light came on downtown. And he proved through that experiment that alternating current was superior to direct current because you could transport it over a distance. Using that, the results of that experiment, he went out to Charter Shoals on Seneca River, now under Lake Harbor. They built a big hydro plant there. The textile mills had been previously using steam, and he brought electric power to the textile mills. These things are first, a lot of them first in the country. Not a first for that type of thing, but a first application in that way. He applied it differently and did things with it that hadn't been done before.
Practical. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so on the strength of that, Anderson then became known as the Electric City. He set up little hydroelectric plants there on the Catawba River, one of which became Duke Power Company. So in many ways, this is the genesis of Duke Power Company, that experiment. Because without that experiment, he wouldn't have gone to those other things. He also expressed regret that he left here because he had done so well here. I call these two tales, I call them glimpses of history. I'm not a historian. I'm a lawyer, retired. You might say reformed. But that's what I am. I'm a lawyer. I have history as my hobby. I'm not a historian. But in gathering this information and having to confine myself to documented matter, I came up with a whole new respect for real historians and what they do. History is exploited, misused. People, so many times, people dig into history to show how great the ancestors were, or to how badly they were treated, or as an excuse for something, or to enhance their image and that sort of thing. History is vitally important that we be accurate and honest. It's written. It's true. Don't distort it. Study it. Learn from it, because the things that happened in the past will light the way that we should conduct ourselves in the present and in the future. What I've learned in my long life, and I've been around a long time, I'm 91 years old, I'll be 92 in October. You have a responsibility to live in harmony with nature and the people around you. Don't exploit people. History is essential, but it has to be accurate. An inaccurate history is a lie. And why lie to yourself? Why lie to other people? What advantages do you think you're going to get? Long-term advantages. I don't even know if you get a short-term advantage from it. I know there's a price to pay for it. I love teachers. I respect teachers. Good teachers are important, almost as important as good families. Good families are essential to a society. A mother and a father in a home. People who, whatever happens outside, when you come inside, you got people there who understand you and support you and care about you. Then you can get the nurtured from that and go back out in the world and do whatever you have to do and come back in. You need that. Good teachers, the same thing.
Learning local history, at least when I was growing up, was a source of pride. I mean, if you knew something about the area you grew up that you were proud of, and that sounds like your book here offers a chance for people to learn something to be proud of about this area.
It's a great area. Well, you think about it. It was the last frontier. Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens were the last frontier in South Carolina. Pendleton was a staging area for wagon trains going west. Great history, wonderful history. Very worthwhile study, and certainly is fascinating enough by being factual. You don't have to exaggerate, you don't have to expound on it. This is my fourth book. My first book was read on National Public Radio by Dick Estelle from Michigan State. You remember him. He's no longer doing it, but he did it. My first book was called Don't Kill All the Lawyers, I'll Give You a Short List. Scared a lot of the brethren at the bar. A lot of the lawyers bought it in self-defense because they thought they may have appeared in there. I don't attack anybody, and any of these things I write has nothing to do with what I write. But my stories, I think, are humorous, but I think they also have a message. The Frank Selvey book, listen, Frank was a classmate of mine at Furman. He and I still play golf together. Frank holds a reputation for scoring 100 points in a game in Division I teams. He still holds that record. Other people have done it, but not in this level. He did it against Newberry in 1954. Frank and his wife Barbara asked me to write this book. Frank Selvey's daddy went into the coal mines when he was 12 years old. Now, think about that. He never played basketball. He never played anything. He went into a cold, dark place and did cruel, hard work to support his family because his father was going to prison for killing the man who was trying to kill him under that harsh cold of the mountains, you see. And so that's who this man is here. This good-looking man here was a migratory crop worker. It's a success story. Basketball was his vehicle, his path. But there are many other paths, and many other people do the same sort of thing he did. The other book was Ain't Mad at Nobody. It's humorous, but each of the stories have a sort of a parable-type message, if I can use that term.
And do you have another book in mind at this point? You've just finished one, and it's like you're talking about you keep writing.
Well, yeah, I get satisfaction from it. And I've been pleased to have the success I had with it. They sell on Amazon, and I sell them all over the country. People still order them, and I still sell them. And when you write one, you don't plan to keep it. If somebody wants it, you're certainly glad to accommodate them by making it available to them. And I'd like to write a book of essays on fundamental things. My thoughts are, when the institutions fail, and they always do, where do you go, and what do you fall back on? You fall back on the stuff I'm talking about. Your fundamental truth. What is the fundamental truth? Truth. What the fundamental truth is honesty.
And people who want to get your new book, there's going to be an event at the Anderson County Museum, September 10th.
Yes, sir. 5 o'clock.
And you'll be there signing books. And
that's right. Bring your friends. If I sell out, I'll take your name and address and I'll get one to you, but please come.